The remnants of once Hurricane Noel rolled up the East Coast last Saturday, a close-up reminder that it is still officially tropical season. Truth is, it's not that uncommon to have a tropical storm or hurricane in November in the Atlantic. What is unusual is for one to affect the U.S. this late in the season. Now, as an example, let's look at the last 50 years when we're pretty confident of the numbers. In 26 of the 50, so about half, there were no named storms in the Atlantic after Halloween. In 7 of the remaining 24 years, there was one tropical or subtropical storm after Halloween, but it didn't affect the United States. And in 11 years, there was at least one hurricane. In a few years, 2, but again, no effect on the U.S. Now that leaves 6 years in the last 50 when a tropical system did affect the U.S. in November. Now, in 2 of those years, the tropical system didn't actually come ashore, but it still had an effect. An unnamed subtropical storm in November of 1981 got close enough to bring rain from Virginia to Maine, even some in eastern Pennsylvania. Then in 2001, Hurricane Michelle grazed South Florida with 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts and some heavy rain. But because of the destruction it caused earlier in its life in Central America and Cuba, the name was retired. One of only 2 November hurricanes to have their names retired. Now that leaves just 4 years out of the last 50 when a tropical system actually made landfall in the U.S. in November. 3 of those years it was a tropical storm. In 1988, Tropical Storm Keith brought 10 inches of rain and 60-mile-per-hour winds to parts of the Florida Peninsula. Then in 1994, Tropical Storm Gordon crossed Florida on a similar path and later strengthened to a hurricane over the Gulf Stream. And then finally, Mitch in 1998 crossed Florida as a tropical storm with winds around 50 miles per hour and 5 to 10 inches of rain. This was the same Mitch that, as a hurricane about a week earlier, had devastated Honduras and Nicaragua with flooding rains. Well, that leaves just 1 year in the last 50 when a hurricane made landfall in the U.S. in November. That was Kate in 1985, which came ashore in the Florida Panhandle on November 21st with 90-mile-per-hour winds and a 10-foot storm surge. Kate also produced a swath of 3 to 5 inch rains from northern Florida into southern Virginia. A day before landfall, Kate had reached Category 3 status, the latest in the season on record for a major hurricane in the Atlantic Basin. Last Saturday, the former Noel produced wind gusts of hurricane force on Cape Cod. Even more unusual, on its extreme northwestern edge, there was just enough cold air for several inches of snow in northern Maine. You don't see that too often. Snow from a weather system that was once tropical in nature. Paul will be back with the extended forecast next.